So thank you and welcome everyone. Investors and technology. Nowadays everybody speaks and talks about AI, data, robotics, machine learning and so on. But are these just buzzwords or are we talking about future trends? Also from the perspective of investors, what is it that excites you guys? I'm interested in that. So if you're a startup looking for some money to start your journey, this is the panel. Now I would ask my dear panelists to introduce themselves and to tell me a bit more about what you guys are doing and how did you ended up in investment sector. Please. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. My name is Sirakov. I'm from Bulgaria next door. And I'm general partner at LAUNCHub Ventures. We've just launched our third fund, which is 75 million early stage fund investing all around the region. And I've been in the business for the last 10 years, actually since 2012, when we launched our first fund. Before that, I was a startup founder. Actually, I failed one company, so probably the moral is usually investors are failed startup founders. My company was in the fintech space in 2007. Actually, unfortunately, didn't survive the 2008-9 crisis. But I'm very grateful because this got me into technology, the startup ecosystem around the region. So this is how I got into the venture capital.
Great, interesting. Toomas, how about you?
Yeah, good evening. I hope everybody is still mediocrely sober, at least. Beer was handed out all over the place. Originally a techie. Built my first startup back in 2000, started in 2006, sold it 2012, got some money, thought what to do with the money with two good friends of mine who built it all together. And I think we've been rather successful in distributing that money to the early stage startups, which sort of brings me here. Also invested in a few of the Croatian startup companies, which are, at least one of them is present here as well. And now, well, basically now I'm here.
Great. So guys, I believe you heard a fair share of startup pitches. Do you have that moment when you're listening to a startup that when you know this is it? This is a great startup. This is a great story. These guys have the potential. Toomas, how you can start here?
It's never usually love at first sight, but you can get affection can happen. Affection can happen. Yesterday I told you about the story. I'm not going to name any names, but if you think it's appropriate, I would share that story.
Absolutely, please.
So it was back in 2000, I would say maybe 14. A startup was sort of pitched to me, said that, hey, you have to listen out these guys because they are doing something different. And as long as I tried to get the sort of common time with the guy, it never happened up until we agreed that we will meet in March in Estonia, first of all. March in Estonia is a very, very damp and dark month. So 7:30 in the morning in a parking lot of a pub under big trees with no lights. I arrived in my Volvo, tinted windows, and as soon as I parked, a young guy, 18 years old, jumps into the passenger seat, takes out his older brother's old MacBook Air, opens it and starts pitching. I ended up investing in that company, probably one of my better ones. I only sooner learned that the guy doesn't have a driver's license, and I don't know how he got there because he lived on a totally outside of the city, different place. Somehow he got there. And this sort of determination was probably one of the key drivers why that investment particularly was made.
Great, great story. Thanks for sharing. What about you, Stan? Do you have that? Or red flags? You can name some red flags that the startups usually do.
Yeah, on contrary, have done several investments actually where I loved the company on the first pitch. Actually, one of my first angel investments in 2012 was a company which actually we met on Christmas Eve, a Bulgarian founder living in San Francisco who just left Google. He was doing the same kind of technology on Google on which he was basing his startup. And we invested with some of my partners over an hour of pitch. And actually, one of my most recent investments in the MLOps space is also a company, a spin-off from the Cambridge Uni, which was also kind of committed as a fund after 1 hour pitch. Of course, it's not usually the case. It's much more complicated, but sometimes the pitch matter a lot. On the negative side, probably one of the things which, at least for me personally, is a killer, is when you're feeling that it's not a real true conversation, where everything is kind of great, no challenges, you know, the market's great, we are selling great, etc. But the founders are not getting the under hood. Of course, there might be companies that everything is great. I'm not trying to say the other way around, but when you ask like the follow-up question or try to dig a bit deeper, you just realize that this was kind of a fancy pitch, which is kind of a bit superficial. The other thing, which is also a killer for me, is sometimes when you when you started being explained in a very complicated industry-specific terms. Because I'm a huge believer that even the most complex technology could be explained very easy. And when I start listening to some kind of a industry jargon, which I don't know, I'm kind of start feeling stupid and nobody's trying to make you get through the process. That's also a killer very often.
Right, but I have to ask, is pitch really that important? Yeah, but.
Well, pitch, it depends what do you mean by pitch, but I think for me the story is important. The story is not a 3-minute pitch on a stage. The story is why are you solving this problem for this particular set of customers? And very often, one company that we were looking for, unfortunately haven't invested, a friend of mine who is the CFO at a unicorn company decided to leave after he realized that he's missing proper tools to do the financial planning and accounting. So when you see this story, you hear the experience, you hear all this kind of a motivation why to do. I think that's important.
I mean, yeah, but isn't pitch more of a door opener? I mean, it's an appetizer. It's not the main course. It's an appetizer. It's like you are reading the back of a book and figuring out whether you should buy it or not. You get to know the book after you actually buy it and open it and start reading. And this is where the details are. This is where the intricacies are, whether to invest or not to invest. Pitch is just an interest picker.
Right. Okay, pitch is not the most important, definitely. It's just one part. But
it depends. Do you want to get in the door or not?
Okay.
Again, slightly different perspective. I mean, it depends what you say by pitch. If it's just 5 minutes pitch, it's obviously door opener. But if you want to understand the whole story, why your company existed, what's the mission, etc., that's pretty important part, at least in our decision making, to know, okay, where do you want to bring this company in the future? And that's part of the story, right? That's part of the pitch. Why are you doing it? Would you have the perseverance? If you have the mission, would you be kind of driven in the bad moments? Because every company has this kind of downsides to get through them. There was an interesting story from Figma the other day, which was acquired by Adobe. They have 5 years of no product and no revenue, and then grew dramatically. And this is also what is the perseverance of the founders. So for me, this is also part of the story.
That's the whole of the book, not the back cover.
So you obviously had great investments, but what about the bad ones? Have you ever made an investment that turned out to be a complete failure?
For an investor, complete failure is when you lose your money. So yeah, every investor has those. I mean, there is no investor, I think, in the world who has only made good calls. I don't believe in such investor. So why the bad calls were made, maybe the story wasn't the one that actually was told. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Maybe the market wasn't right. Maybe the market wasn't ready. There are a multitude of reasons why these things can happen. And this is why it's called risk investor, venture investment.
Yeah, people often overrate, I would say, the time and the right timing for the startup. What do you think about?
Yeah, actually, of course, we have a lot of write-offs. Every investor has write-offs. But for me, actually, the worst investment decisions are not the ones that we written off, because this is part of our business model. It's the ones that we missed. So actually, for me, the real kind of a pain that I feel are actually companies that we haven't invested, which turned pretty well, and we have seen. So there is, for example, a company next door in Serbia called Tenderly. We know the guys. We were the first to meet them. We were the first term sheet, but we couldn't get into the deal, and the company is doing successfully. Other such we have invested into, or we have invested. The company is alive, but it's kind of going kind of sideways. But I had missed the opportunity. So we have done investment into kind of a image recognition in 2012, which was kind of a pretty early on in the market. And we've invested in this company. They were by far, we've done the due diligence by some techie guys. It's an AI company. They were like, they have superior technology. But as of today, like, they're not Google. So these are the ones that really kind of you feel the pain. It's not the $500,000 that you're losing. This is part of our business model.
But how, as an investor, you would actually counter this missing opportunity sort of situation? Because you cannot be the bride in every wedding and the dead guy in every wake. Nobody has those resources.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you are going to miss some deals, and you're going to lose some deals. Actually, what I'm very proud, one of our more junior team members introduced this, is to have a debrief for each kind of a company that went big. So we missed a couple of unicorns. We have some in the portfolio as well. But like to really gather once every quarter and discuss only the companies that get big and we haven't invested, like whether it was just a wrong investment call or we were just not letting the deal. So what to do better, etc. So we are trying to. We cannot, obviously.
Toomas, you have to have some regrets. What are yours?
I do.
About investment.
About investment as well. I've missed companies that have been pitched to me very, very early, which in turn have become unicorns way faster than I expected. I won't name any of them because they are more of Northern European and less here, although some of them are known here as well. But yet again, this is the question. You cannot take each and every chance. Nobody has those resources.
So, like I said at the beginning, everybody talks today about AI, about data, robotics, and so on. Do you follow the trends? Does market trends have a huge impact on your decision making?
I would like to consider myself a trendsetter, not a trend follower.
You choose.
I mean, really. I was in robotics way before it started to be actually a massive hype. Full disclosure, I was one of the first rounds. I invested in Gideon Brothers, for example, in Croatia. So just because I'm a techie, I believe in technology, and I do believe that humans don't like to do, let's call them simple jobs. And this is where the technology has to take over. But you have to see this some years afar. And this is a problem with trend setting, is that funds are being raised on the preface that AI is going to be the next big thing, or fintech is going to be the next big thing, or whatever. But if that thing is already defined, you're already late to the party.
Yeah. But also, you cannot be too early, because I have seen this when you're a bit too early, and we've done this. I've told you about this image recognition. We've invested in a company in Slovenia, which was kind of a robotics health in 2013. Just like if you're too early, when the market is ready for taking over, you might be already too tired, losing your valuable resources, etc. So it's a fine balance. For me, trends are good for door opener, as you said. So I've seen I've seen a lot, especially in the more mature markets when you go fundraise A or B in the US. You know, if you're like, there are like, and this goes to the tier 1 funds. They say, we know this kind of a HR tech is not working, blah blah blah. So it gets an extra easy to get on the door. Of course, this is not the final decision, but it's important, you know, to get the chance, especially for us coming from this part of the world. You can imagine there aren't like hundreds of chances to speak to US investors, so this could help. Now, that's, however, not the real kind of important question for me, because the real important question is like, what fundamental problem the company is solving, right? And there are different technologies with which you could kind of solve this problem. So the important part is like, is there a problem? Have you observed a problem? Do you believe in the solution? And whether you would solve this with kind of some machine learning algorithms on top, or is it going to be a mechanical Turks? Of course, like some of the greatest companies actually started with some manual job-solving problems until they were big enough, have enough customer base to automate them. So from that perspective, of course, I'm like positive on AI. Some of my recent investments were in the space, but eventually it's more about like what problems are they solving.
Actually, you're touching a good point here. There are 2 types of startups in my experience. They're the ones who are developing a technology and hoping to find somebody with a problem that this technology will solve. These are usually the trend followers. And then there are those startups who actually understand the customer problem, and have figured out how to solve it with technology. And those companies are usually the trendsetters. And this is the differentiation, I think.
Yeah, everybody actually has to solve the problem to have a good startup. I absolutely agree. But how deep you go into the research and of the field your investment is? Like,
yeah, no, that's also a good question. It depends, of course, on the bet we make. So sometimes we are making bets on a pre-rev basis based on the product, etc. Sometimes we made bets on the other extreme where companies have already, like probably our like ones like that were more advanced, have already some millions of recurring revenue. So it depends on that. Like if it already has customers and already has kind of a clear value proposition, then it's not that much you do on the tech side. It's more about the like talking to customers, talking to like potential users, etc. But in some of the deep techs, you have to go. You know, you have to go. And of course, we don't understand everything. We are kind of like just stupid investors, but we have a good network of people that we are usually referring to in order to get like their opinion in like whatsoever topics in robotics, in like kind of a machine learning, kind of a NLP or computer vision, etc., etc. So yeah, we kind of get into it and at least try to understand how the things are working.
What about you, Stan?
Indeed, nobody knows everything, which means you have to use people that actually know stuff better than you do. The question is also which stage are you investing in? If it's an early stage company, it's pre-revenue, you have, best case scenario, you have a problem that is quantifiable, you have a solution that you see and can, even in theory, prove that solves that problem, and then you ask your peers and then those who are in the industry, is this the sort of solution that the industry would actually accept? And this is easy. When you are already later stage, when you're already having revenue, when you already have proven business case, then it's about developing a company. It's not anymore, well, it's a startup, but is it a startup? So there are very, very different approaches to what, how, and when. And the later stage the company is, the more you have to be careful.
Okay, thanks. Actually, my last question regarding the trends and everything, would you then rather invest in a startup that has great technology, but that is not in a trendy sector, or you would prefer a startup that is in the trendy sector with technology that can be worked on still?
Oh, definitely technology first. No question about it, because as I said, trend is something that's been produced early adopters and early movers, which means if you're following the trend, you're already late.
What about you, Stan?
Difficult question. I would prefer to invest in a company that has a lot of revenue, happy customers, net revenue retention, and a great team. Tough to say, like, of course, jokingly, no company is perfect, but tough to say. I mean, what we are actually investor in this region, in Eastern Europe, so we invest kind of mostly in Eastern Europe, or founders from this region that are living in bigger hubs. And what is our competitive advantage, especially to the US? It's mostly around the product. So we have seen some of our portfolio companies that has won just because they have better products. We are sometimes a bit disadvantaged when it comes to distribution and to the go-to-market. So practically, you know, that's why we try to understand when we are looking at a company, looking at a competitive landscape, how are they going to win? And if we believe that it's kind of a product game and they have a superior product, we are going to bet. Sometimes it's just the go-to-market game. And unfortunately, we here as Europeans and as Eastern Europeans are a bit disadvantaged towards kind of a natural sales Americans. So it's a very nuanced case by case. And we usually ask this question, is this a product game or is this a go-to-market game? And what we believe as a team is kind of important building blocks for this company. And that's how we take the decision. So.
Well, you also have to take into consideration what sort of a game it is. Is it the race to the bottom? Is it the race to the top? Which sort of revenue streams can you expect? And the later stage you put your investment in, the more of an upside as an investor you will have. Or the less of the upside as an investor you will have. And as an investor, your sort of only goal is to enhance shareholder value or limited partners value. So even though you may like the technology a lot, but if it's a late stage, your upside is 2 or 3 or 5-fold only, you may pass.
Yeah, we don't do this, but yeah, absolutely agree. This, like in terms of the whole venture community, yeah. The earlier you are, you're looking for this kind of 100x returns. The later you are, 2-3x would be great.
Great. So my last question is actually regarding Croatian ecosystem. What do you guys think about that? Where are we standing right now with the startups, with the investments? The last couple of years, we can see a huge improvement.
So actually, I have done the first investment in Croatia back in 2012, and this is the time when I started coming here. I have done a couple of investments in these years, and if I could kind of make this retro for the 10 years, it has grown amazingly, you know. And it's not just Croatia; it's the entire region. But especially for Croatia, I would say probably the same to Bulgaria, place where I'm from. It has grown amazingly, and especially the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen not only kind of course, Infobip, of course, Rimac, like the unicorn companies, but there is the second wave of companies. This is what I'm also trying to understand. That might be already too late for us, so kind of a Series B companies that are raising 20, 30 mil. Already too late for us, but these would be the next ones, and then the ones that are coming after. So yeah, I mean, absolutely very positive on the whole ecosystem and the whole environment.
Well, we've only been in Croatian market, so to speak, only a few years, 4 or 5 years. Gideon Brothers was our first investment. What I see here is that the ecosystem in Croatia is, for example, vastly different from Estonian. Because our first unicorn was still VC-backed, had a very massive amount of US funding in it. Skype is the first unicorn.
Estonia is an outlier in Europe. Nobody could compare to Estonia, to be honest.
I hope that Croatia will at one point have more unicorns per capita than Estonia does. But this is the sort of problem. I mean, it's an opportunity and the problem at the same time you guys have here. You have 2 unicorns which are both bootstrapped. which gives the original vibe, I mean, totally different original vibe. A lot of Estonian, a lot of Skype employees got fairly nice amount of money when Skype was sold to eBay, and that bootstrapped the community in Estonia. A lot of startups happened after Skype sale because a lot of very smart people who were working in Skype before had resources to actually bootstrap themselves, start a startup. This is something that hasn't yet happened in Croatia. You don't have that exit story yet. And this is what I'm hoping to see in a few coming years.
Absolutely wanted to back 100% agree and looking to see which would be the first one big exit to come. We, by the way, observed something like that happening in Romania after UiPath, where today is probably most of our deal flow coming from. We've seen in Bulgaria with some smaller exits, like 300-400 mil exits as well. So we kind of love to back founders from these companies because they have seen the whole story, they have gained the appetite, and they're now, of course, we kind of bet that they're going to produce a kind of an even bigger outcome. Having said that, of course, like being a first-time founder, no having experience, also you have your fair chance of the game. But for the whole ecosystem, I would completely kind of back Toomas on this one. It would be amazing to see those exits.
Great, thank you. This was an amazing panel. Thank you, guys. Do you have any questions, maybe? No? Croatian audience? Nothing? Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Go start companies, be unicorns, and let us invest in you.
Okay, great.